Hi everybody, welcome to THT Motoring, my first ever YouTube video. So I'm going to have a go at making one and just see how it goes really. This is my pride and joy, 1978 Triumph Spitfire 1500. Really original condition. I've had it for nearly 2 years now. The best thing about this car, certainly from my point of view as a novice mechanic, because before I owned this car I had no mechanical experience whatsoever, so owning this has been really good to learn about how to look after cars, particularly of this sort of era. And what's great about this is how accessible the engine is, because if you see the bonnet, how it hinges all the way forwards, the accessibility is fantastic. There's the beating heart of it, although when it decides to work, which isn't at the moment, it's got problems which I'm trying to get to the bottom of. But the great thing about the classic car community that I've found is I've made loads of great people, great new friends from this, much more knowledgeable than me about cars, and some of them have even popped over and given me a hand on sorting things out when I've needed a bit of a hand when it's been beyond my knowledge. And I've learned so much about it. In terms of the jobs that I have done, bear in mind I have been a complete novice, so it shows how well these cars can teach you how to do things like this. The thermostat, which is underneath there, is brand new because there was no temperature reading when I bought the car. So I tested the old thermostat by putting it in some boiling water and it didn't move. The telltale sign of the thermostat's broken is when it moves on the spring if it's in boiling water, and it didn't. So I replaced it with a new one and replaced the bolts as well, along with a new gasket because the bolts were a bit knackered, and that did the job, and I've got a temperature reading now. The rocker cover gasket is new under there. The air filters are new. Originally it had K&Ns on it, but they were very old and very black, and no matter how much I tried to clean them, nothing was working, so I decided to go back to standard air filters. But I didn't put the airbox on it, A, because it never had one, and B, because I just wanted it to be able to breathe a bit better, and I didn't see the point in putting K&Ns on it because I haven't bought this for any sort of power. I want to keep it standard because it's a really original example, hence why I want to keep it like this. Throttle cable, which is here, that was replaced as well because there was a fray in the old one, so I thought best to replace that just in case it snaps on me or anything like that. Fortunately the battery was brand new when I bought the car, and this battery strap here wasn't actually on it, it wasn't secured in place properly, so I just bought this off eBay. Really quick job. That secures the battery in place really well. It is disconnected at the moment because, as I've said, it's currently off the road waiting for some attention. This is the new coil that I fitted recently. What you have to do with these cars is they were originally fitted with a ballast resistor, which affects the voltage to the coil and then to the distributor itself. So what you need to do is, if ever you're not sure if your car is fitted with a ballasted coil, you need to test it on a voltmeter to check the voltage that the coil's giving out. I can't remember off the top of my head how many volts this gives out, but if you have a look on my Instagram page, which is called Tales of a Spitfire, then you'll be able to scroll down and find the repairs I did on that, and that will tell anybody that needs to know if you want to. It's still got points, just because they've always been fine, and I know how to do the points and check the gaps and keep them clean. It's got, I'm just being buzzed by a wasp here, seeing if I can keep my cool. Yes, it's gone. So the points, I replaced those recently, and the condenser I've replaced as well. The wasp is now in my face. Go away. Ah. Right, it has gone now. So where was I? Oh yeah, points and condenser. Sometimes you can get really bad quality condensers, so I buy mine from Distributor Doctor, which was recommended to me by a fellow classic car person who works on classic cars for a living, so I just went with his recommendation. I'm sure there's other condensers that you can buy from elsewhere. If you're not sure, my advice always is to ask people that have more knowledge about it, but Distributor Doctor, I can't recommend them enough. Their parts might be a bit more expensive. I got the cord from there as well, but they are very good quality, and the guy who runs it, chap called Martin, he's very willing to communicate by email and discuss any questions you've got about what you're buying. Every year obviously I do the oil change, so there's the oil filter right there. It's a larger one but does the job really well. There's a feather on there, let's get rid of that. I've also just replaced the fuel lines. Apart from this one, I couldn't get that one replaced because every time I tried to put a new one on, it just leaked fuel everywhere, despite me using petrol clamp. So that might be a job for my mechanic when it goes in for MOT later this year. The other fuel lines are all over here. If you look back at my other video that I did, if you flex your fuel lines and you see cracks emerge, then they need to be replaced. Otherwise you'll be having fuel tipped everywhere, and that's obviously not a good idea, particularly near a hot exhaust, which is only just over here. So always good to check those quite regularly. I've done a bit of rust repairs on it as well. It's not obviously very tidy, but that was rust before, but now that's protected, so it's not going to get any worse. The main problem I've had with this car, ever since I bought it, it's been running rich, and as you can see here on the back of the exhaust, you can see the black deposits there, and that's a clear sign that it's running rich, along with obviously checking the state of the spark plugs. It's a twin stainless that the previous owner put on it. Sounds really good, although it does make getting a jack around here a bit difficult sometimes, because the exhaust hangs lower and more central than the original exhaust, which I think usually goes off, I think, to this side here for the original Spitfires. Might have got that wrong, but it does go off to one side somewhere. The colour, I'm pretty sure, is pageant blue. That's what's on the heritage register. Sometimes British Leyland work the best with colour matches, and they would sometimes not always use the same colour when they said they would, but fairly sure this is pageant blue. I used to think it was Tahiti, but we've looked at the scanning on the chassis and on the heritage certificate, and it does say pageant, so willing to believe that. Something which I did have done as well, not long after I bought it, was getting these mirrors on it, because originally there was a bullet steel mirror on here, which was obviously a modification, and A, it was no good as a mirror, and B, it decided to fall off and smash one day. So it gave me a good opportunity to get the car in and get new mirrors fitted to it. And there was no mirror ever on the passenger side. I don't know whether that was ever an optional extra or whether one had just been removed in the past, but there wasn't actually any holes there, so it probably had never been fitted in the first place. But I've got one fitted just because it's a bit easier to drive with that on, visibility and all that. Now the inside of the car, really original. See all the wooden dashboard. It's a really great feature of this car. The wood is lovely in all the Triumphs, and that's what really makes Triumph a lovely car to be in. In terms of the gauges that you get in the Spitfire, you've got your rev counter over there. You've got your speedometer, and you can see the miles in there. If I just get down here so we can see it a bit better, it's only done, you can see that, yeah, 45,000 miles from new. And that's pretty genuine, because it did stay in a garage for quite a long time before the previous owner rescued it and got it out. But then he didn't drive it very much either, because he was getting quite elderly, and he'd only driven it for the last few years, about 2 miles a month, a local journey. So I think that's why problems with the ignition and the engine and other things were emerging. So that's why I've been replacing quite a few things, because obviously the more you use it, the more those problems will be obvious. You've got the choke just there, you've got the fuel gauge just over there, this is your headlight switch, your fasten seatbelt light, which does work. The battery's disconnected at the moment, but that does work. You've got your heater there, you've got the temperature there, and you've got your power setting there. You just pull it out and then move it across. That there is a dual gauge that I've got there, but the temperature on that doesn't work, but the oil pressure does. So what I've got in here is, I need to tidy this up a little bit, but I've got that in the parcel tray, which is a temperature gauge, and that does work. That does give you a reading. When I replaced the thermostat, I wasn't quite sure which gauge would give me the correct reading, but this one did, whereas the other one, there wasn't anything on there, so I just go with the temperature on that one. This parcel tray here is also new, because the old one was cracked and falling to pieces. Probably was the original one, so I got one. It's not the tidiest job in the world, but it's a lot better than it was. Managed to get the fabric back on with some adhesive. The previous owner put some carpets in there as well. I've taken out the radio panel because I never listened to the radio and it wasn't connected anyway. There was an aftermarket aerial that had been fitted to the front of the car, which just didn't look very nice, so I've taken that out. So eventually the plan will be to fit some sort of sound system in here, just a straightforward one, but that's not an immediate priority at the moment. The priority is to get it running. The worst job I ever had to do on this, I don't think you'll be able to see this very well, but I'll give it a go, is replace the brake light switch, which is, there it is, just up, where's it gone? Where's your brake? There it is, just there. Replacing that switch, the old one broke, the old plastic one broke, and getting that in there was a nightmare, because as you can imagine, I'm over 6 foot, and fitting under this steering wheel, having to have both your hands free to get this switch in was a really, really fiddly job, but managed it in the end. That spring over there on the right, that throttle return spring, that's also new because it wasn't always returning to the completely up position, so I replaced that. Gave the throttle a good clean as well, it was quite rusty before, so that was sorted. There was a lot of rust and dirt on this panel as well, so I sorted that out. I pulled the carpet up and did some work there, and the only bit of welding this car's needed since I've had it was a small hole about just here on the top. So I sent it into a classic car garage and they did that for me, did a really, really good job of it, and it's very, very solid. Underneath the car, if you can see, probably not, but it's really well protected. It's been garaged pretty much all its life. I did some Waxall stuff on it last year just to keep it well protected. I do need to do a bit more just to sort the back out a little bit. There's a few flaky bits that I missed, but it's really, really solid under here, because as any 70s cars, your biggest enemy is going to be rust. So getting a solid example is really, really key if you don't want to spend money on welding, because by far the most expensive repair on a classic car is welding. Because when I took mine into the classic car garage, the weld was only a very, very small piece that needed welding in. And it also went in there to have some work on the choke and also the carburetors. All that was not much money at all, and yet pretty much 90% of the cost was the welding, getting that sorted out. So it shows it does add up. So certainly my main advice as a still a novice classic car owner is to always check your rust, particularly your structural rust. On panels, rust isn't too bad because panels can be replaced or they can be sanded off and treated, but certainly around the sills and the chassis, where I was looking at just over there, you need to make sure that your car is solid, otherwise it won't be safe to put on the road. Because even though these cars are MOT exempt, I always get mine MOT'd anyway, just for peace of mind. And you want to also make sure it's still safe, because your responsibility as a car owner is to make sure that the car is fit to be on the road in a safe condition. And you can have PC Plod coming up to you with some stern conversations if it's not roadworthy. So the plans this year for this car are to get it working again, because at the moment it's a non-runner. All the stuff I've done with the ignition hasn't unfortunately fixed the main problem of non-running. Because whenever you try and start the car, it will turn over, and then as soon as it tries to fire, it'll just spin itself over on the starter motor. I've had a few mechanics advising me, and a couple of them have very kindly offered to come and give me a hand with it if they get some time, because they suspect it could be the head gasket broken between cylinders 2 and 3. So I need to do a compression test on it, but I need to buy a compression tester first. And then hopefully I'll get a good summer out of it, and then I'm going to make a decision about what I'm going to do after that, because this car can't live at my house, because recently I've just bought my first house. It's got a big driveway, but unfortunately no garage, so it lives at my mum's garage at the moment, because it's too original to be kept outside. I know people do keep British sports cars outside, absolutely fine. This one is just too original for my liking. I could put a cover over it, but you know, there's too much stuff on there that could get damaged, so I just want to keep it undercover really. But it means I can't get over to it as much as I would like to. I don't live far away from my mum, but it's the act of obviously driving over there and doing some work. So hopefully I'll be able to get this going and then have a good summer out of it. Later this year I'm hoping to get myself another retro British car. I've got a list of about 8 options. The whole point is it's going to be something simple, so I can do a fair few things on it myself. Something British, something charming, something cheap, because my budget's not going to be that good, so I'm going to try and get the best of something I can. I've spoken to lots of owners clubs and lots of friends I've got who've got these various cars. I'm not going to go through the list now because often it changes, so we'll see further down the line when I've got some money to see what purchases I make. This is the other car I have. It's my 58 Reg Mark II Honda Jazz. If you go on the Project Nigel YouTube channel, that was reviewed by Paul from Project Nigel. Brilliant chap, give him a follow if you haven't already. Really great guy, specialises in Rovers, but he's got a soft spot for Hondas as well. Brilliant car this. Lots of car enthusiasts sometimes question why I've got this, because it's not a very interesting car, but that's not why I bought it. Selling this would be absolutely ludicrous because it's rock solid reliable, it's cheap to run, it's practical and does absolutely everything I could possibly want for it. And because it barely needs any money from me apart from the annual, you know, insurance, tax, service, MOT, etc., it means that I've got more money to spend on this and hopefully anything else that I end up buying later this year. So that's the logic behind that. So really hope you've enjoyed this video. I don't know when I'm going to make some new ones because I'm sort of dipping my toe into YouTube for the first time, seeing how things go. Obviously there's not much I can do on this at the moment in terms of videos because it's not working. I might do some point of view driving for the Honda and just talk about random stuff. So if ever you need something that cures insomnia, that might be something that you might find useful. But yeah, give me a follow on Instagram, Tales of a Spitfire. I might rename the channel soon if I do buy something later this year, because it won't just be the Spitfire that will then feature on it. But yeah, like, comment and subscribe, and hopefully we'll do another video soon that you guys will want to see. Take care.